Right, might get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Session 8, Road Manager Experiences. I'm Carl Chua from NHBR. Kelly Platter, who's usually with me today, he's currently on leave, so it'll just be myself. Today's session is a bit different to our previous ones. We have 5 guest speakers here from councils across the majority of Australia, who are also online with me today in the teleconference. The intention of this session is to share the experiences councils have had as a road manager. We hope to cover roles and responsibilities, positive and negative experiences and challenges, whether they be past or present. I'll do a quick introduction. Bear with me. So from Victoria, we have Claude from Brimbank City Council. From Queensland, we have Morag from Tormba Regional Council. From New South Wales, we have Simon from Fairfield City Council. I'm not sure if I think he maybe had a bit in trouble logging into the session. From Tasmania, we have Royal from City of Launceston. And from South Australia, we have Dominic from the District Council in Loxton. Before I pass it on to the first speaker, please feel free to submit questions anytime. I'll try and address them as they come, or if they're a bit complex, we'll get back to you after the session. I might pass it on to you now, Claude, if that's all right. If you wanted to start with the introduction, I'll just have the screen up, and if you need to share, feel free to.
Yep. We on? Yep.
Yep.
Carl, I think you're still sharing your screen, so I don't think you can share ours.
Yeah, I'll cancel mine. Okay.
Okay.
Just 1 second. Can you see
All
that?
right. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Now, my name's Claude Mano, and assisting me here today is Justin. We both work for Brimbank City Council in the Traffic and Transport Engineering and Management section. Just a quick overview is where Brimbank is. Obviously, a lot of you guys are from interstate. We're in the northwestern region of Melbourne, and as you can see, we've got the airport to our north, and to our south is the bay of Melbourne. Our municipality, I guess, has a fair bit of industrial areas that links with our Western Ring Road, which is that big green one just to the south of the airport. And that area just south of the airport is big industry, predominantly more warehousing than that. And to the south, where the freeway goes to Geelong, that is also goes to the ports, and as a lot of you guys might be aware of, the Westgate Tunnel project links into that, right into the interchange between the Westgate Freeway and the Western Ring Road. So Wyndham City Council to our south also has very heavy industrial areas. So the truck movements in our north and in our south are quite heavy. Most of, I would almost say that industrial for Melbourne is in these areas, apart from Dandenong on the other side and to the north up at Sydney Road. Just to give you a bit of an overview of our sort of population we're sort of dealing with in our region, Brimbank, as of 2018, has a population around 200,000 and it's growing. The other two areas, Melton and Wyndham, they're probably two of the fastest growing areas in Melbourne. Their figures are high, but in the projected populations at 2041 for Brimbank is going to be 230,000. But as you can see, Melton and Wyndham are going to house a fair few people. So there's going to be a lot of pressure in the future for transport, heavy vehicles. And this week the government announced the federal government announced the transport hubs that they are looking at Melbourne, one in Tarneit, and one up at, I think it's Broadford. The next slide just shows you where Brimbank is, really just a recap. Another major project that's going to affect rail and freight is this new airport rail link that's going to go right through our municipality. And apart from the station being right in the middle of Melbourne, the only station the train's going to stop at is within Brimbank. So that's going to change a lot of growth in our area and obviously industry and so forth. So we can see that that's going to grow our area again. To help out with freight in our municipality, there's been a lot of pressure on our infrastructure, and council's been pretty, I suppose, advocating for railway level crossing removals. That's happening right across Victoria. We've been pretty lucky as a council. We've already had 5 or 6 previous ones, and currently under construction. They've only just started the 3 in Red Crosses. Those are 3 projects at the moment, and that's in an area where freight is quite heavy. We're talking, A doubles and B doubles and really heavy vehicles. So those level crossings are really important to gain access, to improve access for these type of vehicles, because it's right on the cusp of our industrial areas. Now, after that little sort of overview of Brimbank, obviously we're here talking about the portal. Now, obviously the portal for me has been really, really good. We see it as a faster process, where before there was a lot of paper sort of stuff. You had to scan and fill things in by hand and all sorts of stuff. So the portal is a really good information base. It's a really good thing where you can look at, you can track an application. You can send the application directly to the transport company or back to NHVR, asking questions and so forth. Obviously, the limitations that we are having with it is the mapping system is not really user friendly. That's sort of in my words. Sometimes when you want to reroute a route, it reroutes the whole route instead of a couple of little roads within my municipality. So sometimes it reroutes roads right up into abutting municipalities. That is a real issue for us. So a lot of the times I have to call NHVR to get them to change it, because I just can't physically change it. Other negatives, I suppose, still that we're having issues with is we don't know where these vehicles are going. The map just stops at just a datum point, but it doesn't tell me that it's going, which property it's going to, and that's the key, I suppose, information that councils need, because our infrastructure is that last mile, and the mile go into the property. So, and this is where we're getting a lot of damage to our infrastructure. So there's a little bit of information. I think that the portal, I suppose, with the next release of it, and continual releases of new updates to a portal, these are the type of things I think should be on there, particularly on that first page. And if that was to happen, an applicant wouldn't be able to submit unless he fills in those criteria. If he puts everything in, if he doesn't, well then it won't accept his application. The other experience and issues that I think, not only with us, I think it's right across the board, is the classification of vehicles, understanding the vehicle types. I think I've been doing this for quite a number of years now. I'd have to say in excess of 30 years. But soon enough, I'm going to have to hand it over to the younger guys. And some of these guys have only just come out of uni. How we educate them in understanding the vehicle types. Classification is one thing. The A class 2, 2A, we could probably do okay with that. But I've been having issues where we've got a heritage culvert, and we've got some pre-approvals on a lot of classifications of trucks, like Class 2A or Class 2B, or whatever it may be. But then within those levels, we've got it's got its own level 1 or tier 1 or tier 3. This sort of stuff here can be mind-boggling to anybody, and particularly most of us have done civil engineering, because none of us have done mechanical engineering. We've never been trained in anything like this, and I think this is a challenge for NHVR and a challenge for most councils in the whole of Australia to understand really what is this truck. It's not our bread and butter, what we do every day. It's becoming that, but that I think is still a big issue for everybody. Speaking to other councils that are road managers, I think it's a challenge. It's a real big challenge. I think my experience with NHVR, forming relationships is a very big key for me. I think people like Kerry, the principal engineer in NHVR, has been really fantastic. I can ask him any question, I can send him anything, and he actually comes back with a really good detailed answer. I can only encourage people to form relationships, even with the guys that are sending you the applications, forming those relationships and getting to know who they are, because then they sort of form that relationship with you, and they understand issues that you're having, or they understand particular routes where you've got some limitations. So I can only encourage that. Transition post and to the NHVR. Obviously, transition prior. I think it was probably 0.001 of my job back then. No more than, I'd say no more than 50 applications a year. I don't know what I'm getting up to now. I think at one point I did check and I was around 1,000. So the workload has increased, and that is something that resourcing that councils are not aware of. I still, I do traffic engineering on a day-to-day, and that's my really big job. But this is starting to take up, I'll almost say 30% of my time, if not more. And this is where I think that transition hasn't really gone across really well with a lot of municipalities. It is still an issue, but transition to NHVR as one identity, where the transport company doesn't have to go to every single council on that route, all the way from Queensland all the way down to Victoria, is really, really good. One of the biggest transition, obviously, was the paperwork to initially with NHVR. There was more of a format. We went from a letter form of approvals to a form where we had to fill out. And then obviously the portal came along, and there were some issues right at the beginning of the portal. So I was part of a reference group with the MAV, which is the Municipal Association of Victoria, and there was 3 of us, I think it was, that we represented other Victorian municipalities to the NHVR with issues that us councils were having, particularly with the portal. What we needed in the portal, how the portal was getting designed, what we wanted to see, and so forth. That is, to me, that was one of the really, really good things that having that. We haven't met for quite some time now. It'd have to be at least two years, maybe a little bit longer. I think every state should have something like this. I'd like to see it come back here in Victoria, that we have that representation as a group, so we can talk about what issues we're having and go all together to NHVR and see whether we can work things out. I'd hope that in NHVR and the MAV and obviously other states that have a municipal association will get together and form these type of committees, because I think a reference group is a really good thing, because we all share the same issues. There's no question. If I get on to other issues that we have, that I find that transport companies have, is this thing about sweat pass, the designs. A lot of times you ask for a sweat path, particularly, I'm starting to get 30, I think it's 35 or 36.5 metre long truck type applications, and I'm asking for sweat paths. Transport companies I've found are very reluctant to go for sweat paths, and I think it's been an experience that they don't know who to go to, and the ones they do know who to go to, the cost has just been too high. And I can talk about a couple of them I've dealt with, where when they've told me the price, I was dumbfounded. I've then referred them on to traffic engineers that are road safety auditors, road safety engineers as well, that have designed their sweat paths with all that safety stuff in mind at a very, very cheap price, and to the surprise of the transport companies. So I think across this sort of topic, I think a bit of work needs to be done there, whether the NHVR can have a list of accredited traffic consultants that do this sort of stuff and strike a rate with them, where transport companies can then just get one of the ones that are accredited with them, very similar to traffic management companies that are accredited with Vic Roads. We tend to use traffic management companies that are only accredited by Vic Roads, not sort of like a backyard traffic management company. So in the same space, I think this is a big sticking point, because with sweat paths, it actually in a lot of cases, will determine whether the person gets an approval or a rejection. It's a space that I think a lot more work needs to be done. I tend to do get the sweat paths done, or both. I also do a lot of on-site demonstrations. The transport companies get a day permit, and we drive. Well, I follow them. We have, get out of the car and watch the actual sweat paths of the truck to satisfy that we're not going to have any issues. Access refusals and approvals. This is where my first thing is, I don't like to refuse anything. I try to find reasons why I shouldn't refuse it. Can we give this guy approval? What is it that he needs to do to get approval? I think some municipalities tend to just refuse it without really doing a bit more investigation. I tend to put on my engineering hat, my road manager hat, but also my business hat. And I think as engineers, we don't do that too well. But, promoting and supporting business is paramount for any municipality. So in a lot of cases, it's going to be an access really going into their property, I find, or it could be on a corner. That's where the sweat paths come into play. In a lot of cases, they just couldn't get access into their properties with the size of the vehicle. I have sort of criteria with sweat paths where, I have 2.3 metres off the opposite curb that the truck has to travel at, not against the curb, just in case of a parked vehicle. And then when he's coming out, I try not to let him go over the centre line. Let him, you've got to give and take. But so then the sweat pass determines our splays on driveways and so forth. So we've been pretty successful with a lot of, I suppose, applications in the past that would have been refused to actually give them an approval, and promote, and that way that business can operate, and business can flourish, so to speak. So that's the way I sort of roll with a lot of applications. The last couple of points: NHVR support, engineering and enforcement. Again, this is where someone like Kerry and also some of the engineers at Vic Roads assist in helping determine whether an application should be refused or approved. don't leave any stone unturned, and that's what I do. So, if it can't get approval, it can't at the end of the day. But if it can, that's what we sort of said as the first thing in mind. Enforcement. Lately, I've been using a fair bit of enforcement, and this is the new NHVR guys that go out, but also the prosecutions area of NHVR, where we've got a container yard at the moment that is in breach of his planning permit, and the prosecutions area of NHVR have come in to assist because he potentially is causing, he is causing road safety issues, but also drivers are in queue for quite a long time and then are rushing to get back. And this is all obviously container sort of work, and that could be deemed, it's an enforcement issue for the prosecutions area. So I've been working very, very closely with those guys, and they're a really good bunch of guys. So they're there to assist, and I use them. The other issues I have, and that follows on with using the prosecution enforcement, the issues that we're having is third-party managers, road managers. Well, actually not a road manager, but I think they should be, and particularly Melbourne Water. Melbourne Water's got hundreds of bridges and culverts around the place. And I finally met with them, and they were dumbfounded that this space about NHVR, they were not aware of it. They've got a lot of structures that are quite old, and this is something I would love to have, that someone like Melbourne Water, like the docks, that they become a road manager and take that responsibility. I don't, because when I've met with them, I've told them that you can't run these sort of trucks over some of your structures, like particularly the one that we've got that they are responsible for, because the structure I'm talking about, it's actually a heritage sewer with a Vic Roads culvert over the top, and we've got our 50 mil of asphalt on top, but somehow legally we are responsible. But I'm sort of saying, well, I don't reckon we should, but in any case, it's something I think NHVR has to look at to get a lot more of these third-party people to become a road manager and not put that responsibility back on councils. That's about all I've got, I think.
Thanks, Paul. That's really good. I'm sort of collating all the feedback into a document and see what we can do with it on our end. But I've noted the issues about all the map with the journey planner, maybe more training on the classes of heavy vehicles and what the tiers are, etc. There are a few comments here. One from Stacey in Mackay. She said, yes, she agrees with you. And I was just asking if NHVR, if we could do more training on potentially OSTEM applications. We might be able to do that. We can.
Yeah.
About availability of swept paths, like templates on the NHVR website. I do believe we have some deep in the website, but I'll note that down. We can probably improve, put some more info.
Well, with the swept paths, I get them to produce a swept path, the actual tracking path as well, from the arterial road all the way to the property they're going to, because there's probably roundabouts, there's islands, and all sorts of stuff in there. With the education sort of stuff, I think it would be good to have face-to-face sort of education.
Yep.
In probably smaller groups in each state. Because you're going to get a better outcome. People are going to learn a lot more than, say, a webinar. I mean, these have been good, the ones you guys have been running. It's opened my eyes to a few things, but I think it really needs training from, in a sense, from preps up to grade 6, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because a lot of I'm going to feel sorry for a lot of these guys that are going to come on board where a lot of us older guys go. They've never done any sort of training in the heavy vehicle space at all, and it's going to be so new to them. And like I said, I've been doing this over 30 years, and I still don't know a lot of them. It's only what I've picked up over time.
I think originally with these webinars we've been doing, the intention was to do 3 like engineering days, actually face to face, but due to COVID and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think look, we're pretty keen to maybe do a face to face day. But I'll bring that feedback back to Kerry. I don't see a problem why we couldn't do that. There's just a comment for you here, Claude, if that's all right. From
Sure.
Samuel. He said, we also have Melbourne water assets, culverts and bridges within Maroondah. Do you require the permit holder to contact Melbourne Water as a permit condition or approve, refuse a permit request depending on the asset loads provided by Melbourne Water?
The structure that we've got, where that's come up, because the heritage sewer is protected by the culvert was owned by Melbourne Water as well to protect their heritage sewer, but then they handed the culvert over to Vic Roads. Ultimately, we got legal advice on all of this. Ultimately, the responsibility lies with the council, even though we've only got the asphalt going over the top. So Melbourne Water don't give approval to go over their structures, from my understanding, from my meetings with them. So in the case that we've got, the responsibility of approval or refusal goes with council because of the asphalt. I do get a lot of assistance from Vic Roads with it, and obviously Kerry. And this is where the National Heavy Vehicle Law doesn't cover that Melbourne Water, you need to get their approval.
Yep.
And this is what I'm saying, that they should become, any of those service authorities or I suppose third parties, people need to become road managers. I think to put the responsibility on councils for somebody else's structure is, I think, it's not good. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a third 3 metre made out of brick sewer. Why they made it heritage, I'm dumbfounded. I really don't know, because we don't have any tourist buses going there, and it's under the ground. But yeah, I think that space there, I think the National Heavy Vehicle Law needs to look at that.
Noted that down. Yeah. Look, Claude, thanks for that. There are some comments here just saying totally agree with everything you've raised today. I might pass it on to Morag, the next speaker, if that's all right. Let me I'll just quickly get the presentation back up.
Thanks, Carl. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Yes? Okay, cool. So thanks, Carl. And as an introduction, my name's Maura Gillingworth. I'm the Principal Traffic and Infrastructure Technology for Tormba Regional Council. Unfortunately, Life Size wouldn't let me into the presentation today, so you're just going to get voice rather than pictures, but that's okay. I'm sure we can work through that. So Tormba Regional Council is a very large rural, semi-urban area in the Darling Downs in Queensland. We've got an area of 13,000 kilometres, predominantly agricultural with some mining in there, population of around 170,000, 7,000 kilometres of roads, of which 500 are unconstructed. Around 200 major structures on those roads, bridges, major culverts, that sort of thing. And I have a team of 13 staff here that do not only NHVR, but virtually any aspect of the road reserve. So works on roads, customer requests, traffic signals, street lights, parking, the whole gamut of anything basically that happens out on the road, my team looks after. For NHVR, we've processed 1,300 requests to date so far this financial year, and that, as the first speaker suggested, is just increasing every year. Because of the increase in agriculture and mining in the area, and a lot because the Port of Brisbane through to the coal mines to the north and the west of us and the gas fields to the west, all of that traffic comes through Toowoomba. So we see a lot of those permits come through as well. In terms of responsibilities as the road manager, so obviously we manage the day-to-day operation of heavy vehicles within the local government network. Now, Toowoomba perhaps have some intricacies that other councils don't have, in that for wide loads, predominantly house moves, and we have a goodly proportion of those every month, because Tormba city itself is a relatively old city, and a lot of houses get moved out of those old areas and taken away to other places. Council provides an escort service to the Department of Transport and Main Roads, so the state, to any vehicles travelling on their roads, as well as vehicles travelling obviously on our own council roads. And because of the size of some of these loads and the locations of traffic signals and that sort of thing, we also have to have electricians travel with those loads to swing traffic signals and move poles out of the road and that sort of thing. So there's a big responsibility with that. To try and counter some of that, we're in the process of pre-approving a number of our routes, and we've already gone down that path to a certain extent, where we've looked at the routes that are being utilised the most heavily and put pre-approvals in place over those to try and reduce some of that workload, and to, I guess, in its own way, although it's not a gazettal, so the operator does still have to apply, it takes one process out of that step for them, so they don't have to wait for council to actually do that approval of that permit for them. The other big sort of part that sits aside to that, as well as doing the NHVR approvals in the portal, is responding to customers about NHVR and about their permits. And while it's not as labour intensive as what it used to be, because if we take a step back from NHVR and the portal, the process prior to the portal coming into place was very labour intensive for council. Everything was paper based. We had to fill out forms, we had to send stuff off to people and get them to sign it and get it back, and then we issued letters of no objection and blah, 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 blah. So now in the portal, it's a lot easier being able to do a lot of that process electronically, but there's still a good proportion of time, we find, involved in actually going backwards and forwards with the operator and with NHVR and trying to work out where operators are actually going. And that relates to what the previous speaker was talking about not actually knowing where the operator's coming from or where they're going to. While you can pick that up in the journey planner, we tend to find that a lot of the operators perhaps either don't put their routes in perfectly accurately, or the journey planner itself selects routes for operators that aren't perhaps ideal and don't actually go on the routes that they're actually looking to travel on. So then there's a lot of that backwards and forwards, and ensuring that the routes are correct and ensuring that the roads that the operators are travelling on are the ones that they actually need and that they actually want to travel on. So all of that takes up a certain amount of time. And I think when we look at the way the process used to operate previously and now through the portal, it's definitely a lot better and it's improving all the time. When the portal first came into play and when we had the handover in Queensland between the Department of Transport and Main Roads and the NHVR and council and all those processes, there was a lot of confusion for probably close to 12 months, maybe even a bit more, on how that process actually worked, and confusion from the operator's point of view as to who they were supposed to be applying to, confusion from councils as to how the whole thing was going to work, and the timeframes got dragged out. But I think NHVR have worked on that really hard, and they've actually got a process in place now that is quite efficient. And looking at some of the things that have just come in recently, the data analytics and the business intelligence that's now available in the portal has made a big difference to the way we can look at things, where we used to have to previously trawl through vast amounts of data to try and find which routes, say, were our highest used routes, so that we could look at which were the most efficient for us to put pre-approvals and that sort of thing on in place. That business intelligence that's there now provides a lot of that information in a graphical format and in a much easier to read format. So having that in place has made a big difference to us. Other positives that have come from the portal and from NHVR recently, I will reiterate 100% what the previous speaker said about relationships. If we can build good relationships, then the processes seem to work a lot better. And having said that, Dan Casey from the NHVR in Queensland, the representative, has been absolutely fantastic. If we've got any dramas, we can give him a call. He helps out with anything. He's really great. In a similar sort of vein, the NHVR liaison with the Local Government Association of Queensland through Robbie Chow and those guys in there has been fantastic for councils as well, because as you'd all understand, there's certain things that we just have no idea what people are talking about or what they want to do, or issues that we haven't come across before, and having those guys available to really assist with sorting those things out and getting that information that we require has just been an absolute lifesaver. In terms of challenges and going forward, I think one of the biggest challenges that we still find in the portal, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, is the mapping. So the big issue that we have with mapping currently is because the NHVR Journey Planner uses, as I understand, Google Maps as a base product. The names of the roads that are listed in Google Maps are not the same as the, in inverted commas, approved or gazetted names that council knows roads as. So while it's probably not an issue so much for operators because they know where they're going and they have a good understanding of the local roads that they're travelling on, for council, when we're issuing a permit and that permit says, and just as an example, none of you are going to know where it is, but says Ravensbourne Dip Road on it when actually it's Philp Road, council's concern with that is that that operator then has a permit that says they're permitted to travel on Ravensbourne Dip Road when they're not actually permitted to travel on that road, and they don't have a permit that says that they're permitted to travel on Philp Road when that's the road that we actually want them to travel on. So I think the Way to Go project that Neil Lynch is looking at, that we've been working with him and with a lot of other road managers around the country, is going to be a really good tool if we can ensure that because it's still based on an open street mapping type project, we need to be able to ensure that when councils put the designated or gazetted road names into that mapping and say, this is the name of this road, that the public can't then go in and change that to what they anecdotally or locally understand the name of that road to be. So that's one thing that is a challenge for us that we're working with. But like I say, NHVR are very accepting of that and are working with us and understand council's concerns about that. So I think that one is going to be a really good one going forward. The other one with the mapping is the journey planner. So it appears that operators, when they select their journey, put in their start point and their end point, and the journey planner selects a route for them, or they can select a route, or somehow a route gets selected for them that is not necessarily the most direct or the most efficient route for getting between point A and point B. And what I actually mean by that is if you're going from point A to point B and you've got a state network that you can travel on, from council's perspective, we would prefer to see that vehicle remain on the state network wherever possible and only use local government roads for like that first mile, last mile portion of the journey when they have to actually get to the feedlot or the cotton gin or the mine or the gas field or wherever they happen to be going. But the journey planner seems to allow operators to put every little backcountry council road and even unformed, unopened roads, little goat tracks through the middle of the bush, and select these routes. And then that again feeds back into that challenge that we spoke about earlier, where it takes time for my staff to actually have to have those conversations with the operators and with their NHVR and that backwards and forwards. And similar to what the previous speaker mentioned about rerouting. So if we try and reroute those operators once they've put a route through all these little backcountry roads, we can't actually reroute them back onto a state route because we're impacting another road manager. So we have to actually refuse those routes, which then pushes that whole process back again. The operator gets upset, NHVR gets upset, everyone, council's being horrible by making people change their routes and things. So perhaps there's something in that as well, that when this new way to go program is being developed, that NHVR could look at, similar to what Google Maps has, where you can say, you know, avoid dirt roads or send me on the state route first kind of thing, keep me on the big roads. And then only if they actually need to traverse council roads, that they do that as that first and last mile to actually get to those places where they need to, where there isn't a state route available. And I guess the biggest challenge for us going forward is resourcing. As I said, we've done around the 1,300 NHVR requests so far financial year to date. And that basically takes the resources of one of my officers full-time, and often a second officer to assist when the workload gets quite heavy. Now, out of a team of 13 staff who have to look after road operations across the entire 13,000 square kilometre region, that's a significant impact or a significant impost on that resourcing. So anything that we can do that can reduce that level of resourcing and give those officers the opportunity to make that process quicker and more efficient is very, very well accepted by council. So in summing up, for TRC, I guess our primary aim with NHVR and with heavy vehicles is to balance the ability for businesses to operate effectively, because we're all in the business of allowing businesses to do their business. We don't want to stop anybody carrying out their business. But in doing that, we need to still protect council assets, and we need to protect the safety of all our road users that are out there.
Thanks, Maureen. I've noted down your feedback regarding the route planner, journey planner, and I'll pass the feedback on to Dan Casey as well. He may be watching, but I'll do it just in case. Just a few comments here, just saying thank you, Maureen. There is a comment here for you, Claude, but I'll pass it on to you directly after. I might pass it on to the next speaker, if that's all right. Simon.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, how are you, man? Yeah, I didn't have time to make a presentation, but I'll do it. Just like build up discussion and sharing my experience about the heavy vehicle application. I totally agree with the other council saying operators need to choose the most direct, efficient, and safe route when travels from destination from A to B to the destination. Because I found that like just recently, I think there's an increased demand and customer expectations. They just choose whatever route they want to use, and a lot of times they are going through roads which are not designed to cater for heavy vehicle movement, such as when there are low limits on the street and there are alternative routes available. So I think in this case, what the operator really should do is just to, before choosing the route, they need to do more investigation on a certain on the matter. That way, you know, they know what would be the most efficient route. Because what happens is if they didn't select the route properly, you go through the application and then we change the route, and then the route might involve with state road network, and it's gonna delay the whole process. And this is, you know, one of the problems we encounter. Other thing I want to touch base on is the 28-day turnaround time. It just, I think, majority of the customers we can deal with them, and most of them are satisfied with that time. We can meet that time frame. But there's a situation where, you know, because we have processes in place as well, and there's been requests we're getting to increase the length of the vehicle, the mass limits, whatever has been approved in the past, it sort of go over that limit. For example, A double vehicle is a common approach for the freight task. It's 30-meter long A double vehicle with a mass of up to 85 tons, and then there are processes we have in place where you want to change something on the road because like the community might be affected as well. Like there are people now LGA don't understand this vehicle, and then what we need to do is we need to report. There's reporting processes where we have to report this the new type of vehicle to the council meeting, where there will be like councillor, the mayor. Then council can endorse approval before we issue a permit. So it really gets complicated sometimes depending on the type of vehicle. Like I said, there are vehicles that the community are not familiar with, and they might impact on their safety, or just impact them to some extent. So really, that 28-day turnaround, most of the time we can meet the deadline, but there's times that we're having problem with, and also there are times when the vehicle, the large vehicle, like I said, the increased length and mass, when the vehicle is used, but then the vehicle is not being built, they're just at the design phase. And what I find difficult is there's no swept path we can use from Austral guideline to actually ascertain how the vehicle turns, and that's something we need to look at. Like maybe AHPR can provide some sort of template for the. I know with the latest technology, vehicle turn better, but we need to have some sort of evidence or supporting information. So, like I said, that can be bring to the council meeting. That will help to speed up the process. So we really need that information because on-field demonstration is not possible. Yeah. What else? Another thing is, with some of the heavy vehicle applications, some of the sites in the Fairfield LGAs, they are not designed to cater for that movement. I know that there are routes the routes can accommodate the heavy vehicle movement, but when it comes to the sites, when it gets to the sites, everything sort of changes, and then the sites may not be designed to cater for that movement, and that condition on the development consent, and that's taking us a lot of time to just go through all the file, BA files. So it's really, like I said, it's really the responsibility of the developer, operator to check not just for the roads, it's also check whether there's any site constraints, like whether the site capacity can accommodate the movement. Because when you come to us, what we're expecting is this movement can be done. Like most of the time, they can be done, except there could be minor issue. But if there are like issue like site constraint, development conditions on the site that restrict the movement, then really we have to go through a separate process where we have to report to the planning portal to make that condition change. And yeah, that's something need to be looked at as well. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything else. This process really streamlined all the applications, and NHR staff's been really helpful, and they've been fantastic. So, at the end, we just have to work together and resolve all the issues, no matter what the problem is.
Thanks, Simon. I've noted your comments about the sweat path templates. I think we might be able to work on providing something. We do have some sort of desktop software we use here, where you can put in the exact vehicle dimensions and everything, and just run a basic sweat path. If you do need assistance, anyone, we may be able to put something in there that help you. It's more case by case, but I might chat to Kerry and see if we can make a resource out of it. Maybe make some templates or something. Yeah, just like to give us more like the level of comfort, because I think what the operator believing, because it's all about expectation, they believe that majority of vehicle, like for example, A-double vehicle, I mentioned again, 30-meter long A-double vehicle can turn better than a 26-meter B-double vehicle. Yeah. But this like we need to have some sort of sweat, because the sweat part we use
according to the Oslo guidelines, it's sometimes a bit conservative, so it doesn't show that way. So if we can get some sort of swept path, that really help streamline the process.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's
Thanks, Simon.
fine. Thanks, Carl.
Might pass on to Uriel now, if that's all right.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Yeah, so I'm Uriel Walters, the engineer at the City of Launceston. So I basically deal with all sort of things traffic and transport related. Yeah, so for those that don't know, Launceston is sort of the economic hub of northern Tasmania. Most of the freight and heavy vehicle movements in the region come through the city at some point. Yeah, so in Tasmania, prior to the NHVR, the State Road Authority, which is the Department of State Growth, managed all heavy vehicle access for the state. And under that system, all operators were supposed to contact councils to let them know they were travelling on our roads, but they never really did. And so when we were told that they were supposed to do that, we were quite surprised that process was supposed to exist. Yeah, and so as a council, we received at most half a dozen HML or similar requests per year prior to the NHVR. And so that came under my workload, and then so I became the person responsible for dealing with NHVR permits when they came in. And so at the time when the NHVR came in, we had no real experience with or expertise with heavy vehicle access, and so we're quite concerned that basically we didn't know what we were doing in regards to heavy vehicle access. Yeah, and when the NHVR came in, the State Growth managed the permit process on behalf of the NHVR for the first couple of years, and they quickly realised that all the road managers in Tasmania were in the same boat and were very uncomfortable about granting access due to the lack of knowledge and expertise. So what the State Growth did at the time, they set up a working group with all the Tasmanian Council road managers to improve the heavy vehicle access process. And the main barrier that was identified there was that councils didn't understand the structural capacity of their bridges and didn't know what vehicles they could allow over their bridges. So the working group engaged consultants to do an assessment of all the state and local government bridges across Tasmania. And so the first round of that assessment, we looked at standard OSO configuration, key heavy vehicle routes, and this gave road managers a much greater understanding of their bridge assets and greater confidence in permitting OSOM vehicles, which led to the introduction of the Tasmanian OSOM notice in late 2015. And from that, about 80% of OSOM travel was now under notice, so it didn't require a permit. And then we did a similar process with SPVs, which was a bit more rigorous. So I released a notice for that in 2019, so about 95% of SPV travel is now under notice as well in the state. And then that we're working on that process some more to cover basically all heavy classes of heavy vehicles, so that with the intent that 99% of heavy vehicle travel in Tasmania will be done under notice. And from what I understand, this process that we've been through in Tasmania is sort of the inspiration for the NHVR SLGAAP project that was mentioned in the last structural assessment webinar a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, in Tasmania, the process is a lot simpler now and a lot quicker. Still get at City of Launceston about 150 to 200 consent requests per year, but most of those are a very simple process. It takes a couple of minutes to assess and approve, basically. So it's very simple. There are still some consent requests that take a bit longer, like if we've got very large vehicles transporting wind farm components and things like that coming through, or where the customer has put in the wrong route, similar to what Morag was saying before about having to change the route to go on a state road where they should be going, but not being allowed to do that and having to start the process all over again. That happens a bit still. Yeah. So one of the benefits of being in Tasmania is that we are a closed system, so the Department of State Growth know what vehicles are in the state, and so we can be fairly confident about our assessments and approving access. So as the others have said, the permitting process now via the portal is much better than it was originally, and certainly the reporting functionality that they've just introduced is really helpful as well. So I don't know what more I can say. It's, in summary, Tasmania's doing pretty well in terms of heavy vehicle access, and yeah, the process is very simple and quick at the moment, and compared to what we would have been getting in terms of permit numbers if we hadn't gone through the process that we have. We're only getting a few compared to the thousands that we'd probably be getting if we didn't go through that process. So, yeah.
Thanks, Real. Yeah, you were talking about the tape bands, isn't it? Where pretty much it's quite a bit of with the like operators, they can just put in their dimensions, use their vehicle type, and it just goes back with where they can operate without a permit.
That's it. Yeah.
Technicalities into it, but that's pretty much the system. And we just haven't noticed that pretty much that's that system. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that.
That's all right.
I'll pass it on to Dominic.
Yep, how you going? Hopefully you can hear me all. So just to give you a bit of a background, Loxton and Waikerie Council is a joint council, been together for about 22, 23 years since amalgamation started in South Australia. We, hats off to Tormba and all that, we're on probably a smaller scale to you guys, but we have about 3,000 k's of road that we look after. Only about 10 or 15% of that's sealed roads. So the biggest battle that we're facing at the moment is your bigger trucks using our unsealed network, and that's kind of like my problem at the moment, that trying to upgrade roads to a point where we can cater for your road trains and B triples and AB doubles and all that sort of thing, which is becoming more common now than it ever used to be before, because a lot of the farmers are now buying these beasts, because we used to be able to concentrate on the roads when it comes to constructing the roads to silos or designated areas. However, now every farmer's got one, so we have to cater for every gateway pretty much, so in the network. So my job, I look after 2 construction crews and an army of patrol graders across the district, a bit like painting the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Those 4 graders are working full time every day, every week. When it rains, if it ever rains, that's our busiest time to get those roads maintained. So I've mentioned one issue, farmers now, we have a bit of a mixed area of dry land farming, irrigated areas, and the newest market of almonds, which are just taking over like you would not believe. We're on the River Murray, so with the amount of almonds between here and if you look, well, sorry, when I say here, I mean where the Riverlands, Loxton and Waikerie is based on the Victorian border, right across to Blanchetown, which, that gives you a bit of an idea of how big our area is. It'll take you probably about an hour and 20 to get from one side of our council to another. We've got about 6 to 10 towns and settlements that we also cater for. The COVID times with the Victorian border was quite interesting, having to block off roads, and the amount of defence force and police in the area that we've never seen before was quite amazing. So The second issue that we have also is there's a town just outside of our council area in our neighbouring council called Paringa. There's a bridge there. It's about 120 years old, and it's on the Sturt Highway. And in order to get across that bridge, you either have to be a super excellent truck driver or you go around. And at the moment, a lot of trucks are avoiding that bridge. And so they're avoiding about 50 kilometres of Sturt Highway, going through other towns like Loxton and Kingston and all that, in order to avoid that bridge. And so we have to keep up with that, which is fine. That's not a problem, but it is putting a strain on our roads. And like past presenters have said, when the mapping system plots out a route, it doesn't necessarily pick the more logical roads. And just on that, I thought that perhaps it might be a good point to point out that a lot of councils in our area, in the Murray Valley local government area, we're looking at setting up a hierarchy system to match in with the Department of Infrastructure and Transport. Perhaps the hierarchy system is something that can be incorporated into the NHVR portal. I don't know if it already does, it probably doesn't, but yeah, that might be something that would help, because one of the issues I'm having at the moment is precisely that. There's a road, and I'll name it, it's called Gordon Road, and it sits between two highways, and it's a shortcut, and that's pretty much all it does. And so we're getting all sorts of trucks and what have you going through this road, and it is extremely unsafe at the intersections itself. So I'm trying to avoid Gordon Road. However, the route planner picks Gordon Road every time. I've gone to council, and council has said, yep, take it off the list. However, I'm in the process now of recalling all the applications that have gone there in the past, and trying to stamp that road out as a road that is taken. And hats off to Tony Clark, who's the NHVR LGA liaison here in South Australia. She's brilliant. Give her a pay rise, give her an office with a view, I don't care. She's fantastic. Yeah, and she's helped me heaps with that, so I'm in the process of doing that at the moment. Yeah, so the NHVR portal has made my life so much easier than the paper-based way we used to do things. It's also helped with regards to building up a history, which I can then present to council when it comes to roads that need upgrading or grant funding and all that sort of stuff. The thematic maps that are being produced now is proof pretty much that we need certain roads upgraded, and it's not coming from me. Councillors like outside input, and the NHVR portal is good for that. So I presented at the couple of councils a few months ago, showed them what was going on, and you could see pretty much a stretch of Sturt Highway that's being avoided, going through certain towns, certain roads being picked because oversized trucks can get through there rather than avoiding towns that are, you know, crowded with trees or overhead power lines and all that sort of thing. And yet they are sheeted roads, which again the mapping system doesn't really seem to care about. Yeah. So other than that, we have seen an increased activity from the NHVR enforcement, especially over grape harvest seasons. Overloading of trucks is a big problem we have here with spillage of grapes. It doesn't sound like much, but causes all sorts of incidents and accidents. So it's good to see the NHVR out at about 5 in the morning pulling trucks over, or you know, 3 in the morning. They seem to not care about time differences, so that's good. We've seen a lot more activity with emergency services and the Defence Force, again with the borders, which is really good to see. Yeah, the only thing I would say with the portal that I would like to see better is a couple of things. it's easier to approve a road than to say no, and trying to also, it would be good if we could get some sort of design help from the NHVR, and I think I pointed this out to Tony last time we met up. Turning circles and all that sort of thing that we normally have to pay for with engineers. It's very hard for us to get engineers to work for councils because they like to stick to the city limits. But yeah, in order to have that sort of expertise here in council, it's very costly. So it would be good, perhaps, for the NHVR to sort of throw a bit our way just to help with, approving roads or approving that we can approve roads or not. So yeah, so we're probably not on the scale of the other speakers here, but we still have our issues, I guess. And yeah, so that's about it from me.
Thanks, Dominic. Just with the hierarchy of vehicles, would that be that's for the vehicles in the portal, eh?
Sorry, what was that again?
When you mentioned hierarchy in the portal, is that for a vehicle hierarchy?
Yeah, well, road hierarchy. So if within our roads, for instance, our sheeted roads, we have a hierarchy of your collector roads, for instance, or your local roads, and your sealed roads. We're in the process of trying to marry that up with the department roads as well. When you pick a route, I don't think it sort of picks a hierarchy. Well, it wouldn't know, I guess, what the hierarchy is.
I'll note that down. Thanks. I'll pass that on. Well, thanks, Dominic. I'll pass that feedback on to Tony as well. He should be watching, but if not, I'll let her know. I think we've sort of come to the end of the webinar here. I'll probably just say, I might wrap it up and just say thank you all for attending. Thanks for taking the time to come along. Kerry has messaged me. I think he's watching while he's on leave. He just said thank you as well on his behalf. And if there's anything we can do to assist you as well as all the viewers, please let us know. Our next session is planned for July. It's a panel discussion, so we haven't really confirmed what we're going to do in this session. What we'll do is send out a survey from now until then to sort of get all your feedback, and if you want us to speak about a specific topic, whether it be more on a vehicle type or compliance, for example, you might be able to get someone from compliance to have a chat, or even legal. I think there is a few more questions coming in. What I'll do, I'll also summarise all the feedback and questions. I'll send it to everyone here, so you have reference. Again, thank you. I think I might end it here. Thanks for your time again. Unless there's anything, did you guys have anything to add or?
No, all good for me.
All right, thanks everyone. Thanks guys.
No worries, guys. Thank you and take care.